Are the door materials too flimsy? Will the windows keep you inside the vehicle in an accident? And do the latches pop open too easily?
How many more have to die before they do something about it?
Also tonight, the trouble with tops. Seniors and packagers try to come to grips with an age-old problem. Hello, I'm Jackie Perrin.
And I'm Bill Paul. Hey, computer hackers, tired of reaching all the way to the top of your desk for your mouse? Click on Market Watch later, and we'll show you a remote control mouse that fits like a ring on your finger. But first, rear door safety.
By now you may have heard about the problems surrounding Chrysler minivans. There are concerns that the rear doors pop open too easily in an accident. Chrysler has denied all along that there's a problem, but yesterday said it would replace the rear latch for free on all its 1984 to 1994 minivans.
For some time now, we've been exploring the story of Chrysler's rear doors, and we've been looking at vehicles made by other car makers as well. We've discovered that accident investigators are concerned about the safety of many rear doors, not just those on Chrysler products. And their conclusion, after looking into countless van and utility vehicle accidents, is simple and disturbing. The rear doors on many of these vehicles are not as safe as they should be.
In an accident, the doors literally crack or break or come off.
The fiberglass door just shattered open, allowing 5 occupants to be ejected through the rear of that Jeep.
The seat was bent and the door was open, and that's where I found my children.
Everywhere you look, there are vehicles with rear doors. Minivans, sport utility trucks, station wagons, and hatchbacks. They're designed to make it easier for you to get cargo in and out, but they also make it easier for people to be ejected.
I think perhaps sometimes the governments forget that there's a rear door and that maybe these should be covered by a safety standard as well.
Peter Keith is an accident reconstruction engineer in Calgary, and he's zeroed in on the main problem with rear door safety standards. There aren't any. And with the growing popularity of minivans and sport utility vehicles, he thinks it's about time there were.
It should be a great concern because you often see 8 or 9 people in a vehicle like this. And once that lock has sprung or the door is fractured, once that has happened, there's nothing to stop people and cargo, etc., flying out of the door.
There are a few ways people can be ejected from a rear door in an accident. The glass can shatter, the door can break, or the latch can fail, allowing the door to pop open. Side doors have been made safer over the years. They have to meet certain safety requirements, including a latch standard designed to keep the door closed in an accident. But rear door latches don't have to meet any standards. This is the image many people now associate with concerns over the rear latch on the Chrysler minivan. Earlier this month, this Dodge Caravan was involved in a 3-vehicle accident just north of Toronto. 2 3-year-old children were killed when the liftgate opened and they were ejected along with the bench seat they were strapped into. This accident was shocking news to most people, but similar accidents have been happening for years. Yvonne St-Onge was involved in one of those accidents.
I tried to move on the shoulders, but I was not quick enough, so the other vehicle hit me on the side of the van.
At that point, the van turned completely around, landed on its side.
When I went to the back, I noticed that that Adam, Joel, and Ann was on the ground, and they weren't moving. So I started to yell, Adam, 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 and that's where I knew there was something, like, it was really bad.
3.5 years ago, Helen and Yvonne St-Onge were in this accident in Chelmsford, Ontario, near Sudbury. They were driving in their Plymouth Grand Voyager with their 3 children, a friend, and 2 of his children. The liftgate opened and the rear bench seat broke away from the floor, ejecting 3 of the children, including their son and daughter.
Then my husband came back and told me that she was dead. And then he came back and told me that my 6-year-old son was dead.
The St-Onge's son, Paul, survived the accident, along with their friend and his children. But they still wonder why Ann and Adam died.
We lost 2 children, and I know it's because of the latch and the latch on the seat. They're both defects, and we're suffering today because of that.
Transport Canada says it knows of 6 accidents where the liftgate of a Chrysler minivan has opened and people have been ejected, resulting in 5 deaths. And in 5 of those cases, the bench seat was also ejected from the vehicle. But Transport Canada didn't know of the St-Onge's accident, or this one near Lloydminster, Alberta, 3 years ago. 3 boys were ejected through the open liftgate of this Plymouth Voyager, along with their seat. They survived.
That's a frightening prospect, I would think, to anyone who bought these vans, thinking that they would safely transport their families in a vehicle made for them by a company that advertised itself as the safety car company.
Ralph Hoare is a vehicle safety researcher in Arlington, Virginia. His mission over the past few years has been to expose what he believes to be a safety defect with the Chrysler minivan's rear latch.
We're 10 years into the production of these minivans and 22 months into defect investigations of these latches. And Chrysler has not conducted one crash test of its latches.
That defect investigation is being carried out by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in the States, NHTSA. The agency knows of 79 cases where the rear liftgate has opened during an accident, resulting in 28 deaths.
They could be made of tissue paper and they would theoretically be acceptable because there's just no standard that applies.
Nicholas Perrone says the lack of strength in rear latches is a serious problem. He's a forensic engineer in Laurel, Maryland, who reconstructs accidents to find out what caused them and how the people involved were injured or killed.
I've been involved with accident cases involving Chrysler vans where I've seen the latch systems coming open in a fairly predictable way.
This minivan was in one of those accidents.
This is the latch mechanism, which you can see it's bent. That mechanism should be essentially parallel to the face of the door. During the accident forces, it simply bent out of plane and allowed a hatch to just pop open.
Ralph Hoare says NHTSA's tests have shown the Chrysler latch fails. Last summer, NHTSA tested 8 different minivan latches. 2 failed. The agency hasn't released the names of the minivans it tested, but Hoare has confirmed this failed latch belongs to Chrysler. Chrysler knew there were concerns with the latch as far back as 1990. This internal memo acknowledges that the company knew its rear latch was not as strong as its side latch. The memo also says Chrysler could strengthen the latch for an extra 25 to 50 cents, but recommends continuing with the current latch at least through 1993, unless NHTSA orders a change.
Our children aren't worth 25 cents or 50 cents.
I don't believe this. I thought it'd be more than that, but just 25 to 50 cents to fix a latch.
Chrysler upgraded the latch for its 1995 minivan and redesigned it for the 1996 model. But it says the redesign was in response to consumer demand for a more easy-to-open latch, not because of any problem with the latch on previous models. The latch is one problem. Another is the window. All vehicles have to have laminated glass in the windshield. It's a layer of plastic sandwiched between 2 layers of glass. In an accident, if you hit the windshield, the glass will break, but the plastic helps keep you in the car. But there's no requirement for that same protection in the rear window.
These glasses are all made of tempered glass, which during accident situations frequently just shatter and present a quick ejection opportunity for occupants.
That's what happened in this accident near Red Deer, Alberta. A woman and her 2-year-old child were ejected through the rear window of their minivan. The woman died. Glass is something most investigators overlook when studying ejection. But this NHTSA test footage shows the difference between tempered glass and laminated glass. While the tempered glass allows occupants to be ejected, different types of laminated glass help keep an occupant in the car during a crash. Nicholas Perrone believes this type of glass should be made mandatory in the rear window.
if you had a laminated material in there, this would have the effect of inhibiting any ejection through that rear opening.
That would take care of the glass in the rear door, but there's an even greater concern, and that's the strength of the door itself. Most are made of steel, but some are made of fiberglass.
And as you can see, I have in my hand, it doesn't take much to just break it, fracture it, and that's unfortunately what happens in accidents with cars of this type that have lift gates of this type, whether it's a Jeep.
Ted Leopold is a lawyer in West Palm Beach, Florida, and he's describing what can happen to the fiberglass liftgate on the Ford Aerostar minivan. Leopold has sued on behalf of a number of accident victims. He knows of more than 40 Aerostar accidents where the liftgate has cracked, buckled, or come right off.
In the majority of the cases, the Aerostar liftgates look, in a lot of senses, like this, where they've literally either been ripped totally away from the car and they're separated at rest position far from the car, or they're hanging by literally threads of wires from the car. But they're all fractured, they're all cracked.
And there can be ejections. That's what happened to a Mississauga family vacationing in Florida. A husband and wife, their 2 children, and the woman's parents were riding in this rented Aerostar when the husband lost control and the van rolled. Police believe the woman's mother was ejected through the broken liftgate. She survived. Ford isn't the only manufacturer who uses fiberglass. Chrysler also uses it for the liftgate on the Jeep Cherokee.
I've seen it happen in a side impact where the liftgate will literally just shatter, break apart, and come off.
Both Nicholas Perrone in Maryland and Peter Keith in Alberta have seen the same thing. This accident, where a Jeep Cherokee was broadsided by a car, happened near Edmonton.
This fairly standard accident resulted in the entire rear door bursting open and 3 people came out of the back.
Those people survived. But this accident in New Jersey had more tragic results. Again, the Jeep was broadsided by a car.
And it caused the Jeep to spin around, and the fiberglass door just shattered open, allowing 5 occupants to be ejected through the rear of that Jeep.
2 young boys died. Nicholas Perrone says they shouldn't have.
It was clearly a survivable accident. You can see that there's no evidence of any door here. It just ripped apart. This is the top segment, which is attached by 2 hinges on each side, and you can see how the whole door should be attached to that element, and it obviously came apart. If that were made of a metal type structure, they do not rip, they do not fracture like this fiberglass does. They'll crumple, but as long as they can still maintain their general configuration, they're going to do their job, which in this case should have been to hold the occupants in the vehicle.
Both Chrysler and Ford say they are unaware of any problems with the fiberglass liftgates on the Jeep Cherokee or Ford Aerostar. However, the Grand Cherokee, which came out 2 years ago, and Ford's new minivan, the Windstar, both have steel liftgates. Peter Keith says there's no doubt that car makers know how to make strong doors, and it's time they started putting them on the back of their vehicles.
They've got to use the same degree of skill and application to the rear doors as they do to the side doors. If the door is going to burst open or fall apart, well, then you've basically left a huge gap in the safety standards as you have in the vehicles.
We wanted to interview a couple of the car makers mentioned in this report. Ford told us they needed more information about complaints of rear door accidents before they would take part in an on-camera interview, and Chrysler declined to appear on camera. One final note for those of you who own 1984 to 94 Chrysler minivans. As we mentioned earlier, Chrysler will replace the rear latch on your minivan for free. You're supposed to receive a letter soon informing you of the replacement program. The dealers don't have the new latches yet. That could take anywhere from 1 to several months. Chrysler says it will contact you a second time when the latches have been delivered to your local dealership.
We breathe it in every time we get near a car. Manganese coming from the tailpipe. Tiny particles of a toxic heavy metal being emitted into our urban air. 3 years ago, we did a story about MMT.
It's a chemical additive containing manganese used to boost octane levels.
Cause their deaths.
8-year-old Michael Hartshorn and his 15-month-old sister Catherine were ejected from their